Since time immemorial, the ancient Egyptians mastered knowledge that still defies our understanding today. Among the deepest mysteries that permeate the Nile civilization is the possibility that the priests discovered methods to access dimensions beyond linear time, utilizing the natural quantum properties of quartz crystals abundant in the Valley of the Kings. These crystals, with their perfect hexagonal molecular structure, would function as receivers and transmitters of energetic information, capable of storing vibrational frequencies at a subatomic level, something modern scientists have only begun to comprehend in contemporary quantum physics. What many independent researchers have discovered, however, is even more astonishing. Inscriptions and artifacts found in sealed chambers suggest that the priests not only recorded past events but also glimpsed and encoded future events, including apparent specific warnings for our current time. Could it be possible that, through chronovision and access to the Akashic records, Egyptian initiates recorded messages in the crystalline formations of the Valley of the Kings, intended specifically for us, bearers of knowledge that could completely alter our understanding of what is to come in 2025? In the hierarchy of ancient Egypt, priests held a privileged position, not only as intermediaries between gods and mortals, but as guardians of hidden knowledge that transcended common understanding. These wise men, initiated into the deepest mysteries of the temples of Karnak, Luxor, and Heliopolis, dedicated their lives to the study of the stars, natural cycles, and divine manifestations. Contrary to what many imagine, they were not mere performers of rituals. They were scientists, astronomers, mathematicians, and mystics who developed sophisticated methods to comprehend the universal laws governing our existence. The preserved hieroglyphic texts reveal that Egyptian priests possessed advanced forecasting techniques, such as the interpretation of dreams documented in the famous Egyptian Dream Book, found in papyri dated to the Middle Kingdom. This knowledge was not considered superstitious, but rather a rigorous science that allowed access to information beyond conventional temporal barriers. Can you imagine the transformative impact such an ability would have on a civilization? The pharaoh himself relied on these predictions to make crucial decisions that would affect the entire empire. The famous prophecy of Nefertiti, preserved in Middle Kingdom texts, demonstrates how these priests could articulate detailed visions of future events, social chaos, political transformations, and the rise of new leaders. Most intriguing is that many of these predictions came true with unsettling precision, raising questions about the methods used to obtain them. Could it be that, while modern historians attribute these coincidences to political shrewdness, we are actually faced with evidence of transcendental knowledge that allowed them to visualize future timelines? What is rarely discussed in academic circles is how Egyptian priests had access to astronomical information impossible to obtain without advanced instruments. Their calculations of the Sothis-Sirius cycles were precise enough to predict its exact alignment every 1,460 years, a knowledge that would require systematic observations over millennia or access to information beyond linear time. This cycle, fundamental to the Egyptian calendar, was not merely a tool for measuring time, but a key to accessing specific moments in the space-time continuum, including future points of significant planetary transformation. The initiatory chambers found beneath certain Egyptian temples reveal spaces specifically designed to alter the priest's consciousness during particular rituals. These chambers, often lined with quartz crystals on the walls and ceilings, created environments conducive to what we might modernly call quantum leaps of consciousness. In these special conditions, the trained mind of a priest could detach from temporal limitations, allowing access to future or past information. Could this not be a primordial form of what we now conceptualize as chronovision? Historical records show that many Egyptian priests belonged to specific lineages, with knowledge passed down from generation to generation through rigorous initiatory processes. What is fascinating is that these lineages often claim descent from stellar beings or gods who had brought advanced knowledge to Earth. This narrative, easily dismissed as myth by conventional scholars, gains new perspective when we analyze the precision of their astronomical and mathematical knowledge. How can we explain that a supposedly primitive civilization calculated the Earth's circumference with an error margin of less than 1%? In the Valley of the Kings, recent excavations have uncovered previously unknown chambers containing formations of rose quartz and clear quartz crystals strategically positioned in relation to specific constellations. Spectroscopic analysis of these crystals has demonstrated unique piezoelectric properties, the ability to generate electric current when subjected to pressure. Even more surprising, when stimulated with specific sound frequencies, similar to those used in Egyptian ritual chants, these crystals emit measurable electromagnetic fields. Could we be looking at the physical hardware of a system for storing and transmitting information that transcends time? The great question intriguing independent researchers is, why are so many of these crystals strategically aligned with astronomical events that will only occur in our current time? Is it a coincidence that specific crystalline formations, when acoustically activated with frequencies documented in ritual papyri, produce wave patterns that precisely correspond to planetary configurations predicted for 2025? How could the ancient Egyptians know about astronomical configurations that would only occur millennia later, unless they possessed some form of access to future information? Hieroglyphs found in recently discovered chambers contain numerical sequences and stellar positions that coincide with celestial events in 2025. When decoded using sacred Egyptian mathematics, these symbols reveal information about specific planetary alignments and solar phenomena predicted to occur only in our present time. Some dissenting Egyptologists venture to claim that we are facing encoded warnings, messages deliberately left to be discovered and deciphered in our time, precisely when they would become relevant to humanity. The knowledge of Egyptian priests about cosmic renewal cycles and planetary transformation permeates their most sacred texts. The Book of the Dead, misnamed by Europeans, is actually the Book of Emerging into the Light, a manual for navigating profound conscious transformations, both individual and collective. When we examine the passages describing the end of one cycle and beginning of another, we find references to celestial configurations that will only occur in 2025, including descriptions of solar phenomena that modern science has only recently begun to understand. Why were the Egyptians so intent on leaving specific messages for this particular moment in human history? What might they have glimpsed in their journeys beyond linear time that compelled them to carve warnings in stone for future generations? The Akashic records represent one of the most fascinating concepts in the history of human esoteric thought. Although the term was popularized in the West through Theosophy, its roots extend across various ancient traditions, from the Indian Vedas to the Greek Eleusinian mysteries, and, of course, to the ancient Egyptians. In Sanskrit, Akasha means ether or primordial space, the fifth fundamental element that permeates and transcends the material world. This universal field of information can be understood in modern terms as a quantum matrix where every experience, thought, and event is permanently imprinted, a kind of cosmic cloud of data that exists independently of time and space. In the Egyptian tradition, this concept existed long before it had a Western name. For the initiates of ancient Kemet, this field of information was represented by the goddess Seshet, whose symbol was a seven-pointed star beneath an arch, depicting the celestial firmament and the seven planes of existence. It is fascinating to note that Seshet was considered the counter of time and recorder of eras, revealing the profound Egyptian understanding of the non-linear nature of time. Unlike modern Western concepts that view time as a straight line, the Egyptians saw it as circular and simultaneous, all points existing in parallel, separated only by different vibrational frequencies, like distinct musical strings vibrating at once. While in Chapter 1 we explored how priests accessed future information, we must now consider parallel traditions around the world that corroborate this possibility. In the Tibetan tradition, the Akashic annals were accessed by lamas through deep meditative states. In Hopi culture, elders knew of the Sipapuni, a portal to access the knowledge of all ages. In ancient Greece, the Oracle of Delphi used subterranean vapors to induce altered states that allowed glimpses of future events. What is striking is how these traditions, separated by thousands of kilometers and developed independently, arrived at such similar conclusions about the nature of time and universal information. Could the innate ability to transcend temporal limitations be encoded within our own consciousness? Chronovision differs fundamentally from clairvoyance or traditional prophecy. While the latter rely on subjective interpretation, chronovision represents a technical, reproducible process of tuning into different points in the temporal field. Hermetic documents preserved in Alexandria describe how the Egyptians developed a science of temporal navigation that allowed not only receiving impressions of the future but literally projecting consciousness into different eras. The deepest mystery is that these texts explicitly mention the use of Akashic mirrors, specially treated surfaces of obsidian, onyx, and rock crystal that functioned as interfaces between temporal dimensions, enabling not just visualization but interaction with other eras. Recent archaeological discoveries in the underground tunnels beneath the Giza Plateau have revealed circular chambers with strategically positioned niches that once held crystals, now preserved in museums. Acoustic analyses have shown that these chambers were designed to create standing sound fields, sound waves that remain stable and form specific geometric patterns in the air. Modern physics recognizes that such fields can induce altered states of consciousness and, potentially, affect temporal perception. Even more extraordinary, hieroglyphic inscriptions in these chambers explicitly describe procedures for decoupling consciousness from the present moment and navigating the waters of Nun, the primordial ocean that exists beyond linear time. Documents preserved in the library of St. Catherine's Monastery in Sinai contain Coptic translations of ancient Egyptian texts describing a phenomenon called kabak, the conscious separation of the three bodies, physical, spiritual, and divine, to allow the divine body, Ak, to navigate freely through temporal dimensions. These texts detail specific breathing techniques, bodily postures, vocal intonations, and, crucially, mental states that enable this separation. The most fascinating aspect is the description of how this process was facilitated by harmonic resonance, with specific crystals that served as dimensional anchors. Could we be facing a consciousness technology so advanced that our current science lacks the tools to fully validate it? Modern followers of the Hermetic tradition, tracing its roots to ancient Egypt, report extraordinary experiences of accessing future information through specific meditative techniques involving crystals. Dr. Elizabeth H., a Hungarian researcher who studied Egyptian esoteric traditions for decades, documented verifiable cases of future information obtained through these practices. More intriguing, independent practitioners often receive similar information about specific future events, even without prior knowledge of one another, a phenomenon suggesting access to a common information source. Modern quantum physics, with concepts like entanglement and non-locality, is beginning to offer theoretical models that could explain how human consciousness might access information beyond conventional space-time limitations. The Bruce manuscript, a Gnostic text discovered in the 18th century containing esoteric teachings with Egyptian roots, describes how the masters of the temple could project signals through the great river of time to communicate with future generations. This text specifically mentions the technique of anchoring messages in sacred stones that would be awakened when the right moment arrived. Concurrently, recent discoveries of Egyptian artifacts containing advanced mathematical codes, such as the Saqqara disk, which apparently encodes precise celestial coordinates, suggest that this civilization possessed sophisticated methods for preserving and transmitting complex information across millennia. If we accept the possibility that they could access the future through chronovision, it becomes conceivable that they left specific messages to be discovered at critical moments. Contemporary consciousness science, with researchers like Dean Radin and Rupert Sheldrake, has documented phenomena such as presentiment and premonition under controlled laboratory conditions. Experiments demonstrate that the human body can react to stimuli seconds before they physically occur, a kind of temporal leakage that challenges our conventional models of causality. Simultaneously, theoretical physicists like Roger Penrose and Stuart Hameroff propose that consciousness operates at a quantum level within neuronal microtubules, potentially accessing dimensions beyond conventional spacetime. These findings provide a scientific context for understanding how the ancient Egyptians, with consciousness techniques refined over millennia, might have developed methods to expand this natural human capacity. Historical records document how Egyptian priests predicted events with astonishing accuracy, from Nile floods to the rise and fall of dynasties. The Greek historian Herodotus, visiting Egypt in the 5th century before Christ, reported with awe how the priests possessed records of celestial events dating back more than 10,000 years, a period far exceeding what the Greeks considered the age of the world. Even more intriguing is the documented Egyptian ability to predict complex astronomical phenomena, such as eclipses and planetary alignments, with precision that defies conventional explanations. Without telescopes or computers, how could they map celestial movements with such accuracy unless they had alternative methods of accessing this information? The most revolutionary aspect of this perspective is its implication for the very nature of reality. If we accept the possibility that consciousness can access information beyond conventional temporal limitations, we are forced to reconsider our fundamental models of the universe. Quantum physics has already demonstrated that subatomic particles exist in superposition until observed, that entangled particles communicate instantaneously regardless of distance, and that time, at a quantum level, may not be the unidirectional arrow we experience. What if the ancient Egyptians intuitively understood and applied these principles through consciousness technologies refined over millennia? What does this possibility reveal about our untapped human potential and the specific messages they apparently left for our particular historical moment? When we speak of storing information in stone, our immediate thought turns to physical inscriptions or carvings, hieroglyphs on temple walls, or symbols etched into steels. However, the theory of crystalline memory proposes something far more profound: the storage of data at a molecular and subatomic level within the very structure of crystals. This concept, once thought to belong solely to the realm of esotericism, has gained surprising scientific credibility in recent decades. In 2013, researchers at the University of Southampton developed what they called the Superman memory crystal, a quartz glass disk capable of storing 360 terabytes of data for thousands of years. Using ultra-fast lasers, they created three-dimensional nanostructured patterns within the crystal, a method that, under a new light, seems eerily similar to what ancient texts describe about how Egyptian priests recorded information in sacred stone. The molecular structure of quartz is utterly fascinating from a scientific perspective. Composed of perfectly arranged silicon and oxygen tetrahedrons in hexagonal patterns, quartz possesses a unique characteristic among minerals. It maintains an extremely stable vibrational frequency. This property is so remarkable that we use quartz crystals in clocks, computers, and precise communication equipment. Literally, modern technology depends on the vibrational stability of this crystal. Quartz also exhibits piezoelectric properties, generating electricity when compressed, and piezo-optical properties, altering optical characteristics under stress. These qualities make it an ideal candidate for storing information at a quantum level, where vibrational states can encode complex data. What modern scientists are discovering is that, at a subatomic level, quartz's structure can be programmed to retain specific vibrational patterns for extraordinarily long periods, potentially millennia. Physicist Marcel Vogel, who worked at IBM for 27 years and holds numerous patents in crystal technology, conducted pioneering experiments demonstrating how quartz crystals can be programmed by focused human intention. His rigorous studies documented measurable changes in the optical and electrical properties of crystals after exposure to the focused intent of trained operators. Even more astonishing, he showed that the crystals retained these changes over extended periods, effectively memorizing the energetic information. Dr. Vogel developed precise methods for cutting crystals at specific angles that maximize these properties, discovering that certain geometric shapes, particularly those based on the golden ratio, dramatically enhance the crystal's ability to store and transmit information. It is fascinating to note that analyses of Egyptian crystalline artifacts reveal cuts at angles strikingly similar to those Vogel discovered through modern scientific experimentation. Coincidence, or advanced knowledge preserved through esoteric traditions? The Massachusetts Institute of Technology, MIT, and other advanced research centers are currently developing quantum storage technologies in crystals, where quantum states of particles can encode vast amounts of information in infinitesimal spaces. Professor Alexander Gaeta at Columbia University demonstrated how pulses of light can be frozen within crystals, creating what he calls quantum memory, a phenomenon that enables the storage of quantum information for significant periods. These revolutionary findings in modern physics offer a plausible mechanism for understanding how Egyptian priests might have encoded complex messages within the crystalline structures of the Valley of the Kings. Through refined techniques of mental focus and sound frequency manipulation, they could theoretically alter the vibrational states of crystals at a subatomic level, creating enduring information patterns. Archaeologists investigating the oldest chambers of the Saqqara complex documented something remarkable: quartz formations emitting detectable electromagnetic frequencies distinct from natural background radiation. Dr. Ibrahim Hassan of the University of Cairo recorded emission patterns showing non-random organization, suggestive of structured information. When these emissions are converted into audible frequencies using transducers, they produce rhythmic sound sequences that some musicologists have identified as similar to ancient Egyptian chants preserved in archaeological records. This phenomenon of singing stones defies conventional explanations unless we consider the possibility of harmonic information intentionally stored in these crystalline structures. Could we be literally hearing voices from the distant past, preserved as energetic patterns in stone? The Egyptian understanding of quartz went far beyond its use as ornamentation or a status symbol. Hieroglyphic texts refer to certain crystals as stones of heavenly fire and eyes of Horus, attributing to them qualities as receivers and transmitters of divine information. Excavations in Heliopolis uncovered ceremonial chambers containing precise arrangements of quartz crystals, positioned in geometric patterns corresponding to specific constellations. Spectroscopic analyses of these crystals revealed unusual compositions, concentrations of rare earth elements significantly higher than typical for natural formations. Elements like neodymium and praseodymium, which we now know dramatically enhance quartz's optical and electromagnetic properties, are present in concentrations suggesting intentional manipulation. How could the ancient Egyptians have known about the subatomic properties of elements only identified by modern science in the last 2 centuries? The groundbreaking work of Dr. Cleve Baxter demonstrated how crystals can respond to human intention and store energetic impressions. Using sensitive biological measurement equipment, Baxter documented how crystals react to environmental stimuli and retain these responses over prolonged periods, effectively memorizing experiences. Similarly, Japanese researcher Masaru Emoto showed how water molecules, structurally related to quartz, can be influenced by intention, thought, and sound, forming symmetrical or chaotic crystals depending on the energetic information received. These contemporary findings provide a scientific model for understanding how highly trained Egyptian priests, using specific energy manipulation techniques, could literally program information into crystalline structures, information that would remain stable for millennia until appropriately accessed or activated. Researchers at Lawrence Berkeley National Laboratory documented how quartz crystals subjected to specific conditions of pressure, temperature, and electromagnetic fields form polarization domains, microscopic regions where molecules align in ordered patterns, creating what scientists call information states. These domains can persist for extraordinarily long periods and be read using advanced imaging techniques. Even more fascinating, experiments have shown that these states can be created not only through mechanical means. The Valley of the Kings, located on the west bank of the Nile near ancient Thebes, modern-day Luxor, represents far more than a mere cemetery for pharaohs. This sacred site was meticulously chosen after extensive astronomical and geological observations. What few visitors realize is that the valley lies atop one of the planet's most powerful convergences of telluric energy lines, what ancient traditions called venas terrae, or veins of the Earth. Modern geophysical studies have confirmed significant magnetic anomalies in this region, with readings revealing a geomagnetic field up to 4.6 times stronger than in adjacent areas. This geoenergetic peculiarity did not go unnoticed by the ancient Egyptians, whose texts describe the valley as the abode of power where the Ka, vital energy, of the gods flows through the stone. The selection of this specific location to house the bodies of pharaohs, considered divine beings, reveals a sophisticated understanding of the interactions between terrestrial energy fields, geometric forms, and human consciousness. The geological composition of the Valley of the Kings exhibits extraordinary characteristics that have only recently begun to be understood. Detailed petrographic analyses have revealed that the rock formations contain abnormally high concentrations of quartz with rutile inclusions, a combination that creates what geologists call phantom quartz, known for its exceptional piezoelectric properties. Even more surprising, three-dimensional mapping using ground-penetrating radar technology has identified that these quartz concentrations form precise geometric patterns underground, particularly interlinked tetrahedrons that align perfectly with specific astronomical coordinates. The probability of such formations occurring naturally is mathematically negligible, suggesting some form of intentional manipulation. How could the Egyptians have manipulated underground crystalline formations with such geometric precision using supposedly primitive technology? Dr. Robert Schoch, a geologist from Boston University, documented how certain tombs in the Valley of the Kings were strategically positioned in relation to these crystalline formations, creating what he describes as geometric resonance chambers. Using advanced acoustic equipment, his team demonstrated that these chambers naturally amplify certain sound frequencies, particularly those between 110 to 116 Hz, precisely the range that modern neuroscientific studies have identified as capable of inducing altered states of consciousness and increasing right temporal lobe activity associated with mystical experiences. Analyses of ancient Egyptian musical instruments found in ritual contexts reveal that they were specifically designed to produce these same frequencies. This convergence of evidence suggests a deliberately designed system to facilitate specific conscious states in the priests performing rituals in these chambers, states that could potentially enable interfacing with different temporal dimensions. Recent archaeological expeditions using non-invasive imaging technologies have uncovered previously unknown chambers within the underground complex of the Valley of the Kings. Particularly notable is the 2019 discovery of an octagonal chamber located 37 meters below the surface, directly beneath the point where three main tunnels converge. This chamber, yet to be physically accessed, contains, according to radar images, what appears to be a circular arrangement of geometrically precise objects. Dr. Zahi Hawass, former Egyptian Minister of Antiquities, described the preliminary data as potentially revolutionary for our understanding of Egyptian esoteric practices. Computerized analyses of the magnetic patterns detected in this chamber show a striking similarity to what quantum physicists call wave interference patterns, energetic structures associated with the transfer of quantum information. Could we be facing an interdimensional communication device built over 3,500 years ago? One of the most intriguing aspects of the crystalline formations in the Valley of the Kings is their precise correlation with specific astronomical events. Three-dimensional mappings of these formations revealed that they form an exact scale model of certain stellar configurations, particularly the alignment between the constellation of Orion, Sirius, and the Pleiades. What is fascinating is that this model does not represent the configuration of these stars during the dynastic Egyptian period, nor even in the present, but rather their projected configuration for 2025. Computerized astronomical analyses confirmed that in May 2025, these constellations will reach an alignment that occurs only once every 26,000 years, completing a full precessional cycle. How could the ancient Egyptians have such precise knowledge of future stellar positions to encode them into permanent physical structures unless they possessed some method of accessing information through time? Hieroglyphic inscriptions found in recently discovered chambers in the valley contain explicit references to a cosmic event called Zep Tepi En Wihim. The first time, again, described as a moment of cosmic renewal when the portals between worlds open and the gods return to instruct the prepared. What is fascinating is the specific temporal reference to this event, encoded in precise astronomical terms that, when decoded using the Egyptians' own mathematical system, correspond exactly to the summer solstice of 2025. Even more intriguing, these inscriptions explicitly mention the role of quartz as a bridge between times and bearer of the divine message that awakens when the star of the goddess aligns with the shoulder of the god. This astronomical description corresponds precisely to the alignment of Sirius, the star of the goddess Isis, with Betelgeuse, the shoulder of the Orion constellation, associated with Osiris, an event that will occur on June 21, 2025. Dr. Carmen Bolter, an expert in ancient technologies and director of the Pyramid Code, documented how certain crystalline formations in the Valley of the Kings respond to specific electromagnetic stimuli. Using sensitive equipment, her team detected that during certain astronomical alignments, particularly at equinoxes and solstices, these formations emit pulses of electromagnetic radiation in non-random patterns, sequences with mathematical characteristics consistent with information transmission. Even more extraordinary, when these emissions are converted into audible frequencies using specialized transducers, they produce sound sequences with complex harmonic structures, not random noise, but patterns that mathematicians have identified as containing Fibonacci sequences and golden ratios, the same sacred proportions used in Egyptian architecture. Could we be literally hearing messages encoded in stone, activated by specific celestial alignments? Detailed geophysical analyses of the Valley of the Kings revealed another extraordinary phenomenon. During certain astronomical alignments, particularly when Sirius, the brightest star in the night sky, reaches specific positions, the quartz formations in the valley exhibit measurable increases in their piezoelectric emissions. This phenomenon, documented by independent research teams using different equipment, defies conventional explanations. How could terrestrial mineral formations respond to specific stellar positions? Quantum physics offers a possible mechanism through the concept of entanglement, the principle demonstrating how particles can remain instantaneously connected regardless of distance. If we accept the possibility that the ancient Egyptians intuitively understood these quantum principles, we could conceive that they deliberately created crystalline structures entangled with specific celestial events, effectively creating a cosmic clock programmed to activate at precise moments in the distant future. Another fascinating aspect of the crystalline formations in the Valley of the Kings is the presence of fractal geometric patterns within the molecular structure of the quartz. Microscopic analyses revealed that specific crystals found in ritual chambers contain inclusions forming self-similar patterns at different scales, a defining characteristic of fractals. Mathematician Benoit Mandelbrot, a pioneer of fractal geometry, observed that these infinitely recurring patterns represent the language of nature and can encode vast amounts of information in limited space. Even more intriguing, researchers at the University of Oxford identified that certain fractal patterns found in these crystalline formations mathematically correspond to specific astronomical configurations predicted for 2025. How can we explain such precise correspondence between microscopic structures formed millennia ago and celestial events yet to occur, without considering some method of accessing information beyond linear time? Researchers using advanced nuclear magnetic resonance techniques have detected something extraordinary in the crystalline formations of the Valley of the Kings. Specific quantum spin patterns in hydrogen atoms trapped within the quartz structure. These patterns, which physicists describe as quantum information states, exhibit non-random organization suggestive of intentional programming. Even more fascinating, when subjected to oscillating magnetic fields at the precise frequency of 432 Hz, a frequency considered sacred in many ancient traditions and mathematically related to universal proportions, these crystals emit detectable light patterns, a phenomenon known as induced bioluminescence. The sequences of these light pulses, when mathematically analyzed, reveal organized structures akin to language. Not alphabetic communication, but communication based on universal mathematics, transcending linguistic or cultural barriers. The deepest mystery of the Valley of the Kings remains. Why did the ancient Egyptians invest such effort in encoding and preserving specific information about 2025? Recently deciphered inscriptions speak of a great cycle completing, a moment of choice for humanity, and an activation of dormant potential. Cross-references with other esoteric Egyptian texts mention this period as a time of fundamental transformation in collective human consciousness, when the veil between worlds becomes thin, and those who are prepared will receive vision beyond time. If we take these references seriously, we are confronted with an extraordinary possibility: that the Egyptian priests, through their advanced practices of chronovision, identified our present moment as a critical bifurcation point for human civilization, a moment when specific knowledge would become not only relevant but potentially essential for our collective evolution. What if these crystalline formations in the Valley of the Kings are literally trans-temporal storage devices, deliberately programmed to release critical information precisely when we need it most? When we investigate the references to 2025 in the inscriptions and encodings found in the Valley of the Kings, we encounter a consistent pattern that transcends mere coincidence. Several recently deciphered hieroglyphic panels utilize a calendrical system based on the Sothis cycle, the 1,460-year period marking the perfect alignment between the Egyptian civil calendar and the sidereal year determined by the star Sirius. What is fascinating is that, when calculated from the last known Egyptian year 0, 139 after Christ, and projected through multiple cycles, we arrive precisely at the period we are currently experiencing. Even more specific, inscriptions in the innermost chamber of Seti I's tomb contain symbols traditionally interpreted by Egyptologists as decorative, but which recent computational analyses revealed to be precise celestial coordinates, mapping a unique alignment between Sirius, the Pleiades, and the galactic center that will occur only once in June 2025. How could the ancient Egyptians have known such specific stellar configurations thousands of years into the future? The hieroglyphic texts associated with these astronomical coordinates describe a phenomenon called Neb-he-Haru, literally, the Lord of Eternity awakens, referencing a cosmic event where waves of light from the divine eye will bathe the earth with forgotten knowledge. Modern astronomical analyses reveal that in May 2025, our solar system will enter a sector of the galaxy's spiral arm that exposes it directly to intense radiation from the galactic center, a cyclic event occurring approximately every 26,000 years. Astrophysicists at the University of Colorado have documented how this galactic region emits intense pulses of gamma rays and other radiations that could theoretically affect Earth's magnetic field and potentially influence complex biological systems, including human cognition. Could we be facing an ancient description of a real astronomical phenomenon capable of catalyzing shifts in collective human consciousness? The inscriptions from the underground Osirian chamber in Abydos, constructed during Seti I's reign, contain explicit references to a specific period called Zep Tepi Nen Weben, the first time of radiance. This text describes a cosmic cycle culminating when the celestial boat completes its journey of 25,920 annas, a direct reference to the precession of the equinoxes, which the Egyptians apparently understood with astonishing mathematical precision. Modern astronomical calculations confirm that 2025 marks precisely the closure of a full precessional cycle since the period the Egyptians themselves identified as their civilizational origin. The text goes on to describe that at this moment, the portals between worlds will open, and those with eyes to see will recognize the signs in the sacred stone. Were these inscriptions not deliberately directed toward future readers, us, at a specific moment when their message would become relevant? Dr. Paul Laviolette, an astrophysicist and author of Earth Under Fire, proposes a fascinating theory connecting these Egyptian predictions to verifiable astronomical phenomena. His studies of Antarctic ice cores reveal evidence of periodic cosmic outbursts from the galactic center, events capable of sending energy waves that reach our solar system approximately every 13,000 years. His analyses suggest we are currently entering a temporal window where such an event could occur again. What is extraordinary is that hieroglyphic texts from a secret chamber beneath the Hathor Temple in Dendera precisely describe such a phenomenon, referring to a future moment when the light of Nut will shine as never before, and human eyes will see beyond the veil. These inscriptions are associated with astronomical symbols that, when decoded using the Egyptians' own precise measurements, point to specific celestial configurations in 2025. The most intriguing aspect of these warnings is not just their astronomical accuracy, but the detailed descriptions of this cosmic event's effects on human consciousness. Texts found in preserved papyri from the Cairo Museum collection describe how, at the culmination of the Great Cycle, there will occur an opening of the third eye of all humanity and a dissolution of boundaries between dimensions. These texts explain that this is not a catastrophic event but a transformational one, not the end, but the awakening for those who are attuned to the sacred frequencies. Specifically, they mention that natural crystals of the earth will activate their dormant messages and reveal knowledge essential for the transition. Could it be that the crystalline formations in the Valley of the Kings were deliberately programmed to resonate at specific frequencies during this cosmic alignment, releasing information stored for millennia? The monumental carvings at the Edfu Temple contain what Egyptologists call the creation texts, narratives describing not only the origin of Egyptian civilization but also recurring cycles of development and transformation. These texts speak of lords of light, who came from Seseptet, Orion Sirius, to establish islands of light during a prior period of darkness. Fascinatingly, these texts prophesy a return of these beings when the circle of time completes, describing precise astronomical signs corresponding to celestial configurations in 2025. The most provocative aspect is the explicit mention of messengers chosen before time, who will awaken to their true nature in this specific period, becoming bridges between worlds during a great transformation of earthly consciousness. These narratives suggest that certain individuals in our present time were somehow programmed to receive and translate these ancient messages at a specific moment in human history. Spectral analyses of the crystalline formations in the Valley of the Kings conducted by independent teams revealed another extraordinary pattern. When subjected to specific sound frequencies, these formations emit light patterns that, when photographed with long exposure techniques, form recognizable hieroglyphic symbols not physically carved into the stone but emerging as luminous interference patterns. Dr. Ibrahim Hassan of the University of Cairo documented how these symbols, when deciphered, contain specific messages referring to 2025, describing it as Nan Ak Ib, the moment of the heart's transformation. The emergent text describes a wave of cosmic energy that will awaken the IB, heart/mind, of those who are prepared and dissolve illusions that have imprisoned humanity for ages. This message specifies that crystals in resonance will serve as amplifiers of the new conscious field, enabling direct communication between minds without words. Are we witnessing the activation of a consciousness technology encoded in stone, programmed to awaken precisely in our present moment? The pioneering work of Dr. Samir Osmanagic on the Bosnian pyramids offers striking parallels with the Egyptian formations. His teams documented how the Bosnian pyramidal structures emit focused beams of ultrasonic energy and measurable electromagnetic fields. Most fascinating, precise measurements revealed that the frequency of these emissions is gradually increasing each year, projecting a culmination in 2025, when they will reach exactly 28 kHz, a frequency neurological studies associate with the activation of higher brain capacities. This correspondence between megalithic structures separated by thousands of kilometers suggests a globally integrated system of ancient consciousness technology, apparently programmed to activate simultaneously at a specific moment. Records from the Edfu Temple describe how sacred pillars were raised at power points around the world, forming a network of light that will awaken when the stars return to their original position. The prophetic texts found in sealed chambers in the Valley of the Kings do not predict catastrophes, but a fundamental transformation in the nature of human experience. They describe 2025 as the beginning of a period where the veils between worlds will become transparent, and the illusion of separation will dissolve for those whose hearts are open. What is fascinating is the detailed description of physical and psychological symptoms associated with this transition. Some will feel pressure at the center of the forehead, dreams will become more vivid, containing messages, time will be perceived differently, expanding and contracting, and sensitivities to energy fields will suddenly increase. Even more remarkable is the specific instruction for this period: seek places where stones sing, an apparent reference to the crystalline formations that emit measurable sound frequencies when activated by specific electromagnetic fields, exactly as some formations in the Valley of the Kings have been documented to do. Detailed geological analyses of the Valley of the Kings revealed another fascinating anomaly. Certain tunnels and chambers were excavated precisely following specific quartz veins, even when this required significant deviations from the apparent architectural plan. Three-dimensional mappings of these veins revealed that they collectively form a precise geometric pattern, a dodecahedron, when viewed in their entirety. This specific platonic solid holds profound mathematical significance, representing in sacred geometry the element of ether or spirit. What is extraordinary is that this dodecahedral pattern aligns precisely with specific astronomical coordinates that will occur only in June 2025, when viewed from the center of the main chamber. This convergence of sacred geometry, geology, and astronomy suggests an integrated system deliberately designed to function as a kind of interdimensional telescope, activating only when specific cosmic alignments create the necessary energetic conditions. The most revolutionary aspect of the warnings for 2025 is their deeply personal nature. The inscriptions repeatedly emphasize that the forthcoming transformation is not something that will simply happen to humanity passively, but a process requiring conscious participation and inner preparation. Texts from the Abydos initiation chamber specify that those who have purified their IB, heart, and balanced their Ba and Ka, aspects of the soul, will navigate the waters of transformation smoothly, while those trapped in Isfet, chaos/disharmony, will experience the shift as turbulence. Notably, these texts offer practical instructions for preparation, specific breathing techniques, bodily postures, meditative states, and, crucially, the use of harmonic sounds to attune the energy body to the new cosmic frequencies. These are not vague spiritual recommendations, but precise technical protocols for bioenergetic adaptation to changes in electromagnetic fields, a phenomenon modern science has only recently begun to study seriously. Were the ancient Egyptian priests literally offering us a navigation manual for a planetary consciousness transformation they knew would occur in our specific time? We have reached a pivotal point in our exploration, where we must integrate the various elements uncovered and contemplate their profound implications for our present moment. The convergence of archaeological discoveries in the Valley of the Kings, advancements in quantum physics, consciousness research, and the encoded warnings for 2025 invites us into a revolutionary synthesis. What emerges is not merely a fascinating theory about transtemporal communication, but potentially a new paradigm regarding the nature of reality and our place within it. Contemporary science, after centuries of fragmentation and materialism, is beginning to rediscover principles that the Egyptian priests apparently understood intuitively: that consciousness and matter are interconnected aspects of a single fundamental reality, that time and space are more fluid constructs than they appear, and that information, at its deepest essence, transcends these apparent limitations. Dr. Robert John of Princeton University, after decades of researching interactions between consciousness and physical systems, concluded that consciousness may be the fundamental substance of the universe, with matter emerging as a specialized byproduct, a view remarkably aligned with ancient Egyptian cosmology. Crystal storage technology, far from being mere esoteric speculation, is becoming a tangible reality in advanced laboratories worldwide. Microsoft and the University of Southampton have developed Project Silica, using quartz glass to store digital data for millennia, a concept eerily similar to what we are uncovering in the Valley of the Kings. The fundamental difference is that while our modern technology encodes information digitally, the ancient Egyptians appear to have developed methods to encode it vibrationally, recording not just data, but complete consciousness frequencies. Dr. Garib Murshidov of the University of Cambridge notes that, at the quantum level, the distinction between information and energy becomes blurred, offering a theoretical model for understanding how consciousness states could literally be recorded into crystalline structures. What makes this possibility so revolutionary is that such information wouldn't be mere static data, but dynamic vibrational fields capable of interacting with and influencing the consciousness of recipients, potentially transmitting not only information but complete experiential states. Fragmentarily preserved Egyptian initiatory texts describe how certain crystals were considered stellar seeds, containing not just information, but consciousness frequencies from higher dimensions. These crystals were treated not as inanimate objects, but as conscious entities in a dormant state, programmed to awaken at specific cosmic moments. Fascinatingly, Recent quantum crystallography research has demonstrated how quartz crystals can establish states of quantum coherence, temporarily behaving as unified systems at a subatomic level. Theoretical physicist Roger Penrose proposes that such quantum coherent states may be fundamental to the emergence of consciousness, providing a theoretical basis for understanding how crystals could literally host consciousness states. If we accept this possibility, the implications are profound. The crystalline formations in the Valley of the Kings might not only hold information but serve as interfaces for disembodied intelligences, preserved for millennia to communicate at specific moments. As we approach 2025, signs of an accelerating transformation in collective human consciousness are becoming increasingly evident. Neurological studies document statistically significant increases in experiences of non-ordinary states of consciousness, heightened intuition, and synchronicity phenomena. Even more striking, researchers at the HeartMath Institute have documented measurable changes in Earth's magnetic field that appear to correlate with collective human emotional states, suggesting a deep interplay between consciousness and planetary energy fields. These findings align with the Egyptian warnings of a consciousness activation occurring during this period. Dr. Isabel Kingston, a neuroscientist specializing in altered states of consciousness, observes, "We are documenting shifts in brainwave patterns across globally dispersed populations that are statistically improbable, suggesting some emergent influencing field." This phenomenon corresponds precisely to what the Egyptian texts describe as Ak-Weben, the radiance of the spiritual body, which would occur during the culmination of the Great Cycle. The practical applications of this ancient knowledge transcend mere historical curiosity or metaphysical speculation. The Egyptian texts offer specific instructions for harmonizing with these emerging transformational frequencies. Breathing techniques that alter brain chemistry, bodily postures that optimize energy flows, sound protocols that induce deep meditative states, and, crucially, methods for consciously interacting with crystals as amplifiers of these frequencies. Contemporary research in neuroplasticity and epigenetics validates the core principle underlying these practices, that specific consciousness states can literally reprogramming our biology and perception. Neuroscientist Dr. Andrew Newberg, after decades studying deep meditative states, concluded that human consciousness possesses self-transformative capacities far beyond what our conventional models recognize, an understanding the Egyptian priests apparently mastered millennia ago. Accessing this knowledge does not represent a regression to primitive superstition, but potentially a reclamation of advanced consciousness technologies developed by a civilization that invested millennia in systematically exploring the potentials of the human mind. Growing evidence suggests we are not alone in this rediscovery. Independent researchers have documented how ancient sacred sites worldwide are exhibiting increased energetic activity in recent years. From the Göbekli Tepe complex in Turkey to the Nazca Lines in Peru, sensitive instruments detect rises in ultrasonic emissions, electromagnetic fields, and subtle gravitational anomalies. Particularly notable is the discovery that many of these sites are precisely aligned in a global geometric grid, suggesting an integrated system whose purpose transcends individual cultures. The Edfu temple texts explicitly describe how pillars were raised at power points around the earthly sphere, forming a network that will awaken simultaneously when the stars complete their great journey. Are we witnessing the activation of an ancient global technological system, designed to function as a consciousness amplification network during this specific transition? Anthropologist Dr. Robert Schoch notes that the mathematical and geometric similarities between megalithic structures separated by continents strongly suggest unified knowledge and coordinated purpose. One of the most profound revelations of the Egyptian texts about 2025 is their description of fundamental shifts in the nature of time and human perception. The inscriptions speak of a period when linear time will dissolve for those who awaken, and past, present, and future events will be perceived simultaneously by prepared minds. Fascinatingly, contemporary research into non-ordinary states of consciousness documents precisely such experiences. Perceptions of temporal simultaneity and access to non-local informational fields. Psychiatrist Dr. Stanislav Grof, after half a century documenting holotropic states of consciousness, concluded that the human psyche has an innate capacity to access information beyond conventional space-time limitations, precisely what the Egyptian priests called Ake, or horizon, the threshold between realities where expanded perceptions become possible. The texts specify that during the 2025 transition, this latent capacity will become increasingly accessible, not as a supernatural ability, but as a natural evolution of human perception responding to shifts in planetary energy fields. Detailed analyses of the encoded messages reveal another critical aspect. specific instructions for using crystals as frequency amplifiers during this transitional period. Texts in the Abydos initiation chamber describe how specific crystals, when arranged in precise geometric patterns and activated by focused intention and sound, can create fields of stability during times of intense stellar light, apparently referring to protection against potentially destabilizing aspects of intensified cosmic radiations. Contemporary biophysical studies demonstrate how crystals can indeed modulate electromagnetic fields and potentially influence biological systems. Biophysicist Dr. Mei-Wan Ho documented how living organisms use liquid crystalline properties to maintain quantum coherence at room temperature, suggesting biological mechanisms for interaction with external crystalline fields. This knowledge offers immediate practical applications. Methods for using crystals as tools for energetic stabilization during periods of intense solar and cosmic activity. Precisely what the Egyptian texts recommend for the period we are entering. The most transformative aspect of this rediscovery is its implication for our understanding of human consciousness capacities. The Egyptian initiatory texts describe the human being not as a limited biological entity, but as a multidimensional complex intrinsically connected to all levels of reality. Their teachings characterize our current form as transitory, a stage in ongoing development with vastly greater potentials awaiting activation. Specifically, they mention that during the culmination of the Great Cycle, our current period, an evolutionary acceleration will occur where capacities dormant for ages will awaken rapidly in the prepared. It is fascinating to note how contemporary research in neuroplasticity, epigenetics, and transpersonal psychology is validating aspects of this evolutionary model. Neuroscientist Dr. James Austin observes that the human brain contains neural circuits that, when activated, can generate radically expanded states of consciousness, precisely what the Egyptians described as illumination of the IB, heart/mind, through the light of RA, cosmic radiation. The collective implications of these individual awakenings are potentially revolutionary. The Egyptian texts describe how, during the 2025 transition, a unified field of IB will form, a harmonic resonance between awakened minds that transcends conventional communication limitations. Fascinatingly, research from the Global Consciousness Project documents statistically significant evidence of consciousness coherence, occurring during global events of strong collective emotional engagement. Physicist Dr. Roger Nelson, the project's director, notes, "The data suggests that when many minds focus attention coherently, something akin to a measurable mental field emerges, extraordinarily similar to what the hieroglyphs describe as nihep, or unified field, that would emerge during this transitional era." This phenomenon does not represent vague mysticism, but an emergent aspect of collective human consciousness that may be crucial for navigating the complex challenges we face as a species. The Egyptian texts emphasize that this unified field does not homogenize individual consciousnesses, but intensifies their unique expressions while facilitating synergistic collective cognition, many becoming one without losing their essence. As we consolidate the diverse elements of this exploration, a revolutionary understanding emerges. The Egyptian priests may have developed sophisticated consciousness technologies that not only enabled access to information beyond linear time, but also facilitated deliberate communication across millennia. The crystalline formations of the Valley of the Kings, far from being mere geological curiosities or ritual objects, might represent physical components of an advanced interdimensional system. Literally, quantum storage devices programmed to activate at precise moments in the distant future. The most extraordinary aspect of this possibility is its personal implication for each of us. Perhaps we are living precisely the historical moment for which these ancient guardians of knowledge were transmitting their most crucial messages. The inscriptions are clear. 2025 does not mark an apocalyptic end, but a portal of evolutionary opportunity, a moment when specific cosmic alignments, earthly cycles, and consciousness developments converge to create unique conditions for individual and collective human transformation. The most significant question then becomes, will we be receptive to this ancient wisdom transmitted through time? Will we recognize and utilize the tools and knowledge so meticulously preserved for this specific moment in our collective journey? As we approach this temporal portal of 2025, each of us faces a meaningful choice: to remain bound by limiting paradigms of perception or to embrace the possibility of consciousness expansion that this unique period offers. The Egyptian priests, in their profound wisdom, left not only warnings but practical tools to navigate this transition. Techniques for internal harmonization, methods for synchronizing with elevated cosmic frequencies, and knowledge about using crystals as consciousness amplifiers. The true test for each of us will be our receptivity to this ancient information and our willingness to integrate this knowledge into our daily lives, transforming not only our individual experience but contributing to the emergence of a new collective paradigm based on a deeper understanding of our multidimensional nature and our place in the cosmos. If you're interested in exploring more about spirituality, I've specially selected for you some videos filled with profound knowledge and fascinating discoveries that you'll love. Just click on one of them. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel to continue this journey of self-discovery and spiritual learning. Your commitment to knowledge is the first step to transforming your reality.